start asking a couple of questions, and yeah, then we'll go back to you. The first question I'd like to ask is from Steve Lee, and he's asking, how would extraction of raw materials be handled under an international socialist system to meet the real needs of people without causing ecological destruction? And then the second half of the question is, how far could workers-controlled nationalization go while capitalism still continues?
Sí, qué buenas preguntas.
Yeah, well, what a great question. Excellent question. Look, there's two questions here, and they're both very important. So clearly, we, the revolutionaries, the socialist revolutionaries, know that we need to make decisive steps forward towards a planned economy. Now, not too long ago, together with Mineria, we proposed three demands from our perspective as an international workers movement in the context of the International Workers League, or international. And we took up the question of the state and the question of the economy. So we and we know what was being told to Maria. They were telling us that we were crazy, that what we're demanding in the Plurinational Assembly of Workers in Chile, with the participation of the communities and all this, and that our demand to destroy the existing institutions of the bourgeois state and all their powers, we were demanding a socialist proposal, and obviously the bourgeois press were calling us crazy, but it was the business owners and even the left parties, socialist parties, were attacking us, and were attacking Maria, saying that what we were proposing was crazy. Now look, so what role are we playing? We have we're moving towards people's tribunals, the way Lenin did, but we discuss a lot here. Well, what would we do? What is the solution? Because if we suggest measures such as these, we need to, for us, because the question really goes hand in hand with when we say that ending the situation of monopoly that exists, that are controlled by a few businesses in Chile, and that respecting the property of these industries, we are saying to move beyond that. We are proposing a new society, fundamentally. And if exploitation of natural resources continues, Well, so we are, what's key to us is saying first that, as our comrade from Canada was saying, that in Canada, there's many, many mining companies, and many of them are in Chile. They exploit Chile. And they destroy our rivers, they destroy our communities, et cetera, et cetera. But for us, our perspective, our socialist perspective, our perspective is not stagist, we're not stagists. Our perspective is to first move production under workers' control in order to be able to define the conditions of production. In Chile, there's there's no investment even in the extraction facilities in Chile. These mining facilities are ancient. They're not being built in a way that would be sustainable with regards to the environment. They're hundreds years old. And as a result, they are contaminating the environment at a terrifying rate. And it's similar with other questions that are connected to this, like the situation of the plants, the transport, all the logistics of this process, et cetera, et cetera. So what we say, if we can control the circumstances of production and to stop the exploitation under these extremely environmentally damaging conditions, we will be able to stop the theft outright. And this is a theft that is occurring daily under these current conditions. And really, we're not just talking about copper. We're talking about all of these natural minerals. We would only buy, in just the last 20 years, there's been billions upon billions of dollars of natural resources that have been stolen from this country. Nothing is left behind. And the Piñera government, the ex-president, was saying that Chile is a paradise. And Chile is beautiful. There's beautiful beaches, deserts, forests, etc. But it's a paradise for businesses, for foreign investment. What we want is, within this framework, we want to be participating. We want the working class to be at the table in order to bring its perspectives and to take the first step towards further workers' control. So we understand that in order to create the real possibility of control by the working class, we first need to have these businesses under our control, and from there to begin to plan our economy to meet the needs that exist in this country, in the world, and that would be just the beginning. So we first need to pass to nationalization, which is not the final answer to this situation. It is simply the first step. And looking at the second part of the question, looking at Bolivia in 1952, during the Bolivian Revolution, it was led by miners, by mining unions. But what was the problem in Bolivia? The problem in Bolivia was that even with workers' control, there was workers' control in Bolivia. What was the problem? The problem was that workers did not seize political power despite controlling the site of production. If we continue this coexistence with capitalism, well, what do we say as revolutionaries? We say that even with workers' control, if workers' control isn't made with or isn't undertaken with the purpose of taking political power, what is it for? What we demand is what we're demanding is a transitional demand within bourgeois democracy to bring bourgeois democracy to the breaking point.
Can you wrap up? Just because we have lots of questions that are coming through for you, so I wanted to just urge you to wrap up to go to the next question.
Okay, termino.
Okay, yes. So sorry. So yes, we have the socialist perspective here. There's a lot that still needs to be accomplished in order to put into practice, but these are not these. What we're proposing now are not really socialist demands, but rather transitional ones. We are on the road to socialism. And in order to create the real possibility of socialism and workers' political control, it needs to begin with these demands. And we need to make sure that when we are calling for workers' control, we are calling for political workers' control. We're not calling just for control in the sites of production. That is merely the first step. And I'll leave it there.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a great answer to a difficult question. The next, I'm going to combine some of the questions that are similar of a similar theme. But a couple of people are asking about the petition for nationalization of the mines and copper in particular. Could you speak a little bit more about the process of that petition and how you took it to the Chilean people, to unions, to workers, just a little bit about who was involved in that process?
Sí, claro.
Yes, of course. So the fight for copper in Chile has been going on for years, even since before the 70s, even before Allende. And it was motivated, or it was being raised over many years, and it was a fight against North American companies, and it's not our demand. It's a historical demand that we are appropriating. It's been around for years, but in this context, in the context of the 2019 October Revolution, from 18th of October on, the neoliberal model in Chile is being challenged, and there's been challenges against capitalism itself and its development in Chile. And from this, there's the demands for education, health, et cetera, et cetera. But where do the natural resources come from? Where does wealth come from? And in that context, everything comes back to copper in Chile. And in that framework, we as a workers' movement are saying, we're going to take this historic demand, and we're going to move it forward. How do we do it? First, clearly, we need to bring this to the workers. It was like, we can't do anything without having this be taken up by the working class itself. So we printed papers. We have a paper, The Miner's Voice in Chile. We raised the demand for nationalization. And we use this to unite the mining workers, to raise these demands, to raise miners' voice, and to spread it across the mining industry. 1,500 copies one place, 2,000 another, start distributing it. For these workers, for the workers across the mining sector to be marching with us, to be won over to our program. What is this program that we have? It had 5 more or less key points. It was down with the labor law that exists, as I've said, is very pro-business, which was confirmed during the Pinochet regime. It was down with the subcontractor laws that which interferes with our ability to demand better working conditions. All of this ends up being decided between the subcontractor and the business. And opposition to the evil mafia-like union bureaucracy that exists in Chile. We have an incredibly corrupt system here that never mobilizes the workers for anything. So, and they take a lot of money while the workers are left poor. And the next point was the nationalization of these major mining industries. Because in the constitution itself of Chile, it specifically mentions that the state has sole rights to the mining riches of this country. So the current context of private exploitation of Chile is all with the government's blessing under this constitution. So we were demanding that the state withdraw this permission and move towards nationalization. So taking all these demands together in order and demanding for the union also to enter this political discussion, to politicize workers. And in this vein, we also joined forces with intellectuals that have been criticizing the copper industry and that understand the technical aspects and the financial details of this process and can provide us with the information to identify where our wealth is being robbed, how we can move towards nationalization. And by bringing these discussions together, the Constitutional Convention has presented challenges. And I've mentioned already, like, the absurd vote thresholds that need to be crossed in order to approve any norms. But when norms are proposed to the convention, it needs to receive at least 15,000 popular signatures from the people. Now, in 1 month, within just 30 days, you need to be able to obtain 13,000, 15,000 signatures. And we went out to do this for our norms. And we ended up surpassing this limit and ended up obtaining 25,000 signatures. Nobody was believing that we would reach these heights. So we took up this petition demand as the IWL, as the MIT in Chile, together with the workers' organizations, together with the intelligentsia allies, to bring these demands forward. And this demand is brought to a committee on the environment and the economy that discusses it. If the commissions approve it, it passes to and in this process, other parties, the Socialist Party, the Communist Party, the Broad Front, are bringing their norms as well that have been far to the right of anything we've been proposing. None of them are suggesting workers' control. That's something that only we have raised. And to a point, their perspectives were being all mixed and interchanged. We were consistent with our demands that we need workers' control. We need to control the conditions of extraction. And I'm coming just now from another forum that essentially, and raising them, we need to continue raising these demands to continue putting workers' control on the agenda of the day. And there's not much possibility that these norms will be approved by the Constitutional Convention, but we're using this as an opportunity to bring our demands forward to the people, to raise the perspective of what is possible politically. And obviously we're in a minority position inside the convention, but this demand is the demand of the people. And that is the message that we are bringing into the Constitutional Convention. Together with the mobilizations, with the whole struggle of the mining workers. That is what we are bringing.
Thank you. Following the line of your last remarks, there are a couple of people wanting to know more about how the SEAM union came to exist out of the struggles of 2018 and 2019, and what the local experience of the general upsurge has been like.
Okay, mira,
Look,
primero yo decir que yo,
first, I'll say that so that you guys know, I was a militant in the Chilean Communist Party for many years. Now, you know what the Chilean Communist Party is. It had a different character than communist parties in other parts of the world. But since I was very young, in that framework, I became a union leader in the mining workers union. When I was very young, I was 18, 19 years old, already a leader in this union. Now, I've always been part of this worker struggle. And there's been a great amount of solidarity and among mining workers in Chile. And we were bringing forward discussions across all subcontracted workers in Chile. But it also needs to be said, as years passed, when the Communist Party decided to join the Bachelet government in 2013, ends of 2013, I broke with the Communist Party then. And that was a strategic break. It was a break with the strategy of the Communist Party. It's easy to renounce a party, but if it's just an exit without a strategic change, then nothing changes. It needs to be a strategic shift. So I made the strategic shift to adopt the strategy of the Socialist Workers' Party in Chile. And this is a strategy, not the class collaboration strategy. I broke with that strategy and said, it's necessary to organize ourselves from the base with political discussions, with workers. And in that context, that's how we get to to October 2019. And it's said that in 2019, Chile woke up. We'd sing, Chile is waking up in the streets. This was the chants that we'd hear across the streets. And in the mining industries, the miners for many years that were part of the unions, that were part of the parties for the 30 years since the end of the Pinochet regime, we've been saying it's not 30 pesos, the metro fee that launched the October protests. Rather, it's 30 years, the insults that we have lived as the working class in Chile since the 90s. And we began to mobilize against we organized outside of the union bureaucracy. We outflanked them with our rank and file workers who were raising these demands. We're like, where is our healthcare? Where is our education? And all these things. And it's in this context that we're also raising a demand of, or rather a different strategy of how to organize ourselves as a union, a fighting union. How do we organize a rank and file union? We needed to have leadership that is recallable and accountable to the rank and file, that could be removed if they lost the confidence of the base of the union. We were raising this demand at the same time in the union, for the union, and in the constituent assembly, for the constituent assembly. That's why our union is called the 18th of October Union, because it goes hand in hand with the general demands raised by the Chilean people in the October Revolution of 2019. To be able to move forward. When we met in October 2021, after many years of discussions, these were clandestine discussions, these were secret, we were meeting in workers' homes, we weren't able to be open at the work sites. We were there for 14, 15 days debating with 10,000 workers, including all of the work sites, even the ones that were far from the cities. That is where, together, in the barracks, in where we were living, we were meeting, unified by our readership of Miner's Voice, Voz del Minero, in order and organizing around this newsletter, we were able to form this new union. Now, some of our leaders, including myself, have been retaliated against for our actions. We've managed to win back the positions of several of our leaders of our union. Not for me just yet. I've been without work, without pay for about 6 months now. But we've managed to fight back and win the positions of other key leaders of our movement. None of this would have been possible without, or would have been possible under the framework of the old union. Because we need to be organized not just in Chuquicamata, but across the sector, across the different work sites, to bring the same struggle. And we now count more than 3,000 workers, building off of a union, out of a union that once counted only 250 workers. And we're continuing to get more and more people joining our union. But it was October that allowed us to bring the demands of nationalization and to use that to build the union as well. Understanding that the union is not the revolutionary party, the union is not the political organization of the working class, but rather is the institution of the working class that allows us to bring these discussions to the base, to broaden them, to win mass support for them across the working class. And we continue to militate for these positions. In my work site, the work site is owned by a Spanish business and an Italian business, and we're fighting against them. We're not fighting against just tiny Chilean companies. We're fighting against international corporations that are attacking us. But the important part If we hadn't been able to have these political discussions with the workers for 2-3 years leading up to October, if we hadn't been able to build our program to go beyond what the old union was demanding, it's only because we've been able to lay all this groundwork that we've been able to bring our certainty and our militancy to this movement. And we are confident that we will win this fight in the long run. We will move forward with our demands, with our historical demands of the working class of Chile, because it's not just this union. We're not standing up alone. We're not just talking about mining workers' problems. We're talking about the unity of the working class across sectors, across strategic circles, with workers across the other parts of the economy, to nationalize the economy, to bring the economy under workers' control, and from there, to bring in the women's struggle, to bring in the youth struggle along class lines, with international solidarity, to bring all of this together as one organization, an international organization with a political perspective that capitalism oppresses us, exploits us, destroys the environment, kills all that is good, not just in Chile, but rather at the international level. That is what we need to build that workers' organization with these goals and move towards a working class without borders.
The next question has to do specifically with the formulation of workers' control. What explanations do you give for workers' control? What responses do you get? And what are the outcomes you are expecting from such a demand at this time?
Well, interesting question. Mining in Chile, the mining sector in general, it's historically one of the most militant sectors. And here in Chile, it's always said, it's what we say as mining workers. When there's a strike, when there's struggle, when there's a strike in the mines, there's a strike in the country. The country stops. And really, the copper is the true master of the Chilean economy. Or as Salvador Allende was saying, it's the floor of Chile, the ground. When the mining sector stops, everything stops. The business people get nervous. They start to panic. So there's a high level of struggle to begin with, and a high level of consciousness is historical consciousness. So the first call to national protest under Pinochet, during the Pinochet era, was in 1983. It was led by the mining workers. The Mining Workers Confederation that called the strike, and bringing in other sectors with them. So we have a long history of fighting consciousness. It's also true that, well, as I said at the beginning, 70% of the workers in Chile are subcontracted. 30%, or perhaps less today, 23%, I believe, that are truly direct employees of the companies. And These are the workers that receive good benefits. They have better access to rent, to healthcare, etc. But it's the 70-something% of workers that we're extremely precarious. The contracts they're short-term. They're not 5-year contracts. They're maybe 2-3-year contracts. And then after your contract's up, you have to go renew it. So we don't have any security in our jobs. So a young man or a young person in Chile who wants to study, if you want to get an education, it's 6, 7, 8 years. Their contract might last 3 or 4 years. There's no guarantee that they'll be able to continue supporting their education until the end. So the mining workers, it's always in our heads that there is somebody who's exploiting us, and the person exploiting us is the boss. In other words, to bring the discussion of who controls the economy to workers, or control over natural resources, etc., to control over the companies themselves, this is something that's very important. But this rhetoric, this discussion of who controls it can be abstract if it's not connected directly to an explanation of what the role of the theft of copper of Chile means. If we don't explain, we need to explain the process by which the wealth of Chile is stolen from our country. Now the efforts of thousands of workers in Chile are taken and appropriated by a handful of business owners that don't leave anything behind for us to live our lives. They destroy our health. They destroy our access to housing. And when we're talking to workers, it is very clear, if you want access to these things, if you want your children to have access to these things, if you want to be free of exploitation that you've experienced since you were very young, as you are suffering from silicosis, you know that you don't have access to any of the goods of society, even the most basic ones. In order for any of that to change, in order to be able to resolve these problems, we need ourselves, not just the mining workers, but us as the whole working class need to take this control. But we need to explain it connected to the pillaging of the natural resources. If the connection isn't made between the poor living conditions and the theft of the wealth, people can come to the conclusion, oh no, the businesses bring us jobs. No, this is not true. The businesses are appropriating the wealth that is the product of our jobs. They are not giving us the job. The job is here. The wealth is here. And it's what I always said. If tomorrow or any day, so today it's Saturday, tomorrow Sunday, all the workers in the mines, if we don't go to work, if we say we're not working, and it's left just the business owners to work the mines, and only the leaders of these businesses are left, will the mine work? Is there production? No, of course not. And if the day after tomorrow, on Monday, if only the workers go into the mines and no business owner goes into the mine, are the mines working or is there production? And they say, obviously, yes, there is production. So clearly, who does production depend upon? Who is creating the jobs? Who is responsible for production? Is it the boss? The boss who can leave and production continues? No, it's us. We are the ones who are doing this production. In this framework, that is what we're talking about when we talk about workers' production, control of production. So for example, I grew up here in this middle of the country where there's long history of mining workers. We're in the city centers, in the cities. Our communities are polluted. Vegetation is dying. Mining pollution is destroying these things. We know firsthand the polluting effects of the mines, because we know that they don't do sustainable development here in Chile. What is sustainable production? As we understand it, sustainable production means a company arrives, it does whatever it wants, it exploits us, and then later when it leaves, it needs to leave it behind exactly how it was before it arrived. That is what would be sustainable. Does that happen? No, not even a little. Why? Because the logic is extractivism, not leaving anything behind. It's not a logic of production in order to live. It's a logic of production in order to produce. And we believe that we need to bring in our human needs to the question of production. We need to control it according to the continuation of human life, not according to production for the sake of production. And we need to plot a way forward under workers' control together with the environmentalist sectors, together with the indigenous groups, to move towards a method of production that is truly sustainable, that does not destroy our rivers, that does not kill our fauna. We need to move in this way. And we need workers to take control into their own hands in this way. If we don't explain things this way, people will say, oh, if the business leaves, our work leaves and we can't work. No, we need to control the conditions, and we need to take production into our own hands. If we can take it into our own hands, we can resolve all these problems. When, where, and how, or if we exploit a given mine. None of this is even on the table for as long as control remains in the bourgeois hands. If we take it into our own hands, we can solve these problems and continue a production that meets human needs.
Two more questions before we start wrapping up the end of this forum. The first question is, so beyond the mining sector, are there other industrial sectors that you all are engaged with? And then specifically on the climate crisis, is there a climate movement in Chile today that the mining sector or the Meet Chile is actively engaging with? Sorry, not to confuse you. That was the first question, but there are various questions in it, and then we'll have one more at the end. Sorry about that.
Muy bien. Mira,
Well,
respecto a la primera pregunta.
So, regarding this first question, yes, we are connected to other sectors. We were already organizing with them, with teachers, with university professors. There's also healthcare workers and political organizations, and even also some nature protectors. So in the Constitutional Convention, there's a lot of illusions about the process. And even within the Boric government, there's people that have illusions. So Boric was elected, and this was because first there was the far right candidacy of Cast. So there was that specter, and then there were also sectors that voted for Cast. But then there were reformists who were voting for Boric because they had illusions in Boric, in the convention. These illusions are now falling apart. Factions that were supporting Boric, that supported the convention, are realizing that the Constitutional Convention is not going to resolve the great problems that are facing the working class, because they are writing them in, as happened in Bolivia, as has happened in Brazil, Colombia, other places. New constitutions are being written, but it's not being accompanied by a discussion of how we break with the existing economic system. Then there will be all these pretty things promised in the Constitution, healthcare, education, etc. But if we don't specify how it will be funded, then it's going to fall apart. It's not actually going to happen. So, as we're seeing, these political sectors are not supporting nationalization of mining in order to finance these various efforts. So the illusions are falling apart. So these factions that had supported Boric, had supported the Constitutional Convention, are now turning and saying, look, we need to support nationalization instead. We need, and the environmentalists are also coming to this conclusion. So we, with Maria Rivera, have been raising these demands. And with me as representative of the miners as well, we've been organizing demonstrations, meetings, speeches to bring together environmentalists in far reaches of Chile, from the glaciers to the forests to the deserts, to discuss this topic of copper. We've gone to speak with them. And when we've presented to them our perspectives, our proposals, they've said, we agree with you. We are fully in agreement. Because we don't raise these. We're not saying that we're not interested in the environment. No, we want to work alongside them. We want to bring them into our struggle. Because the enemy is the same for us and for them. It's capitalism. That's our enemy. So, within this framework, I'll finish by saying, it's been us and just a few allied intellectual sectors that have been raising these critical demands. And with our principles, raising these demands, and as it becomes clear the Constitutional Convention will not meet these demands, people's illusions are falling apart and they are increasingly coming over to our perspectives. And meanwhile, the government has been taking their own steps forward. They've been criminalizing protest. They've been militarizing Mapuche lands. They've been repressing across the board. And that has also been disillusioning people. So these people have been saying, look, we need to keep fighting. This doesn't get won without a fight. Not with a convention. And I'll take 30 more seconds. I just came from a forum that is actually still going at the University of Santiago de Chile. It was established under Allende as the key technical university. That's where Victor Jara was kidnapped and killed. He was a professor of that university. And that's where the engineers are taught, where construction is taught, all these academic fields that are connected to working class industries. And I just came from there. And I was talking, and there were other speakers from education workers, from people talking about rent, healthcare situation, people coming from the commercial centers of Chile. And they're saying what's fundamental is the question of the day is to unite for nationalization of mining in Chile. And from there, we believe that we can launch a perspective of struggle for this key struggle to bring the fight forward. And it's not going to be just us, but rather it's going to be us together with all of the other struggling sectors of Chile, together with the student organizations in the universities, together with the other sectors of the economy. If we can do all this, we will create the grand movement of struggle that we need against the government, against the capitalists, whether they're national or international, and against the neoliberal model that has been imposed on this country.
Okay, last question from the audience. Is there anything our trade union comrades in the US can do to show their and our solidarity?
Sí, sí, por supuesto. De todas maneras.
Yes, of course. Well, and I'm saying this, look, copper, the way copper is for us, in other countries, it's petroleum or another resource. We harvest copper ore, and then it's shipped to other places where it gets further refined. And then they keep exporting it from there, and it's a whole network. Here we have just the primary resources. So, and on top of that, we think that it's very important for these historical demands of our class, in order to be able to respond to the needs of the historical needs of ourselves as a class, across, like even just meeting the basic needs on a day-to-day basis. If Chile is a country that is so rich with natural resources and has so many different kinds, we have more than 4,000 miles of coastline. But who owns the oceans of Chile? There are 7 families that own the water. They own everything. They own the mines. If you go to the southern part of the country, and there, or where the Mapuche people are leading their struggle, it's the same families that they're fighting against. Jamili, etc., etc. They're in parliament. There, so here in Chile, we talk about salmon farming. All these ports, all of this is concentrated in the hands of these same families. So to get to the point, that struggle, these big industries, it's not just Chile, it's the same all over the world. And they exploit nature under extractivist, destructive methods, capitalist to the core all over the world. Extractivism is not a system. Capitalism is the system. But within capitalism, they engage in this most destructive extractivism. And we need to fight against these businesses. In order to fight against these businesses, it needs to be an international struggle. We will never speak of just a national struggle. It's an international struggle from the get-go. The working class is oppressed on a global scale, and the fight back needs to be on a global scale. That's why we care about what happens to the working class in Ukraine, what happens to our comrades all over the world. Because these important struggles that we are in solidarity with, that's why we're in solidarity with our comrades in so-called Canada, or in the Amazon, in Brazil, Peru. All of our solidarity with these peoples, our emancipation will come from this international struggle against capitalism. There's an important campaign that we need to take up that we can talk about and coordinate, and we need to continue in contact with each other to be able to coordinate and to organize international campaigns in order for you to support our fights as a union. So on May 1st, we were having demonstrations to reinstate our comrades, including myself, in our jobs. And in order for all of this to be possible, we need your international solidarity. We need to be in touch. We need to be coordinating together. The people who exploit us are the same people, and our fight against them needs to be united. Whether it's in North America, Latin America, Chile, wherever. So I would invite you to, from here on out, as comrades, to extend our solidarity to struggles in other sectors as well. What's important is to be able to organize this coordination. The business people are all coordinated. They have their businesses all over the place. They are very well organized. We need to be just as well organized. We need to bring the fight in an organized fashion.
Thank you so much, Edu. I want to give the last word to Taytyn before we close. So Taytyn, your last words, and then Edu, if you have any final words. You've been giving us a lot of information, so as you wish. But I wanted to hand it over now to Taytyn.
Thank you. And I would like to thank you again, Edward Gallardo, for taking the time to tell us about the incredible work you and IWL comrades are doing in Chile. All with the goal of uniting the working class and oppressed groups for workers' control, as well as the heroic fight of the miners, the workers, and indigenous peoples against oppression and exploitation. You've been incredibly informative about the structure of exploitation and oppression, as well as resource extraction, environmental destruction, and its roots. Further, you have provided an inspirational model for agitating for workers' demands, organization, indigenous rights, and environmental justice that we can only hope to be able to live up to in North America. Finally, you have outlined what ultimately must be done to achieve ecological justice and production, as well as the liberation of the working class, indigenous peoples, and oppressed groups. I'd also like to thank everyone who has joined us today for taking the time out of your day. It's the weekend. I imagine you wanted to be out in the sun or something else, to listen to all this information about the Chilean struggle, which is incredibly important, as well as its lessons. I hope that it will provide a basis for supporting their struggle, as well as building similar struggles here in North America. If you were interested, if I might chill for a second, if you were interested in a North American organization dedicated to the overthrow of capitalism, environmental justice, workers' power, and indigenous liberation, I really do hope you'll look into Workers' Voice.
Thanks, Taytyn. So thank you all so much for joining us. I want to say again that this is the first of monthly forums that Workers' Voice, La Voz de los Trabajadores, will be hosting. Our next event will be on Sunday, May 29th at 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, on the crisis of migrants under Biden, a revolutionary perspective. So I hope you all mark your calendars and can join us for that event. I want to say thank you so much to the translation team. You guys killed it always. It's so much work, and I'm in awe. And again, thank you so much to Edu and Taytyn for speaking. And this was just a wonderful forum. Thank you to everyone for assisting. And with that, the end of our first of many forums. So thank you all so much for joining.